Good morning, afternoon or evening, wherever you are in the world, and welcome to the back row from What I Watched Tonight. My name is Matt Hudson, and this is the Retrospective series where I look back at a classic film, a wonderful film, or a film that I just think is great with somebody who shares the same opinion. So I'm very, very pleased to announce that joining me in the back row again tonight, well, she's from Canada, she's royalty, ergo, it's the Queen of Canada, it's Lora, she's coming back on the show. How you doing, man?
Hey, Matt, I am doing awesome. Considering everything, I'm doing great. Thank you.
So, yeah, considering the world's falling apart around us, then, we're still smiling.
Yeah, just a bit. Happy to be here, though. It's been a while.
We were saying off air, it's been a year. Like, it was February of 2020. Wow, halcyon times they were before any of this was really happening, when we could, do stuff. And you can go to the cupcake shop whenever you wanted and get your cupcakes, and I could leave my house whenever I wanted. And it's very odd to think a year later we're doing this episode, and I know it's everyone's heard the story, so they don't want to hear me go on about the pandemic, but I just find it odd that in the space of a year, look at where we are.
I know. A lot's changed, but it also doesn't feel like it's been a year. I think that's kind of the best thing about it. Is that I when I couldn't remember when we had last done this, I was like, oh, it must have been like 6 months ago or something like that. Matt and I have been keeping in touch via social media, so he's a good dude, and I'm glad that we made it through this dumpster fire of the year that was 2020.
This is absolute crap fest of a year, and long-time listeners will be glad to know that Laura still doesn't like The Rise of Skywalker, isn't that true?
No, I do not like. I recommend.
If you want to have a laugh, just send her a message and ask her about Tross. It's great. But sadly, we're not here to talk about The Rise of Skywalker tonight, and I hope that'll be the last time I mention it. Instead, we are talking tonight about A League of Their Own from 1992. So before we talk about it, here's the admin. It's directed by the wonderful Penny Marshall, God rest her soul. She directed Jumpin' Jack Flash, Big with Tom Hanks, Awakenings. It stars Gina Davis as Dottie Hinson, Tom Hanks as Jim Dugan, Laurie Petty as Kit, Madonna as May, Rosie O'Donnell as not Rosie, and I've got the wrong name, and John Lovitz as Ernie. It was made for $40 million and grossed $132.4 million worldwide, which is a big old sum. It didn't win any Oscars, but it was nominated for 2 Golden Globes, and this is a spoiler-heavy show, so if you haven't seen A League of Their Own, it's about 2 hours and 8 minutes long. Go and check it out. And here's the synopsis, just to remind you. America's stock of athletic young men is depleted during World War II. A professional all-female baseball league springs up in the Midwest, funded by publicity-hungry candy maker Walter Harvey. Competitive sisters Dottie and Kit spar with each other, scout Ernie Capadino and grumpy has-been coach Jimmy Dugan on their way to fame. As you probably noticed, that synopsis sounds crap, and the film was an awful lot better than that. So last time, spoilers, so go and watch the film. But Laura, you were quite keen to talk about this film, weren't you? So what is it about A League of Their Own that just makes you firstly want to rewatch it and dive into it for an hour or so?
It's always been one of those movies. It's been I really want to watch this movie. I haven't seen it in a while, and it's always gives you that feel good feeling. I love stories that are based on true events, but maybe a little loosely. I think that's where we find A League of Their Own, as it is based on true events, as the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League was something that actually existed, but the characters in the movie aren't actually based on real people, so none of the actors are actually playing people who are, go by these names. But it's just it's a heartwarming, feel-good movie. Who doesn't like a heartwarming, feel-good movie every once in a while, right? It's directed by a woman,
damn right,
which is kind of cool for the early 90s. Penny Marshall, the late Penny Marshall, passed away a couple of years ago. Her brother, Gary Marshall, is in the movie. He plays Walter Harvey, the candy bar guy, who is loosely based off of Philip Ringley, who is I think he was the coach for the Chicago Cubs.
Wrigley Field would make sense, yeah.
Yeah, and he had like was it chocolate but gum. He was like a gum manufacturer. So anyway, I just as a woman, it's really nice to see movies that are about women, and if anything got me interested in the slightest about baseball, it was this movie. So yeah, so, it's really entertaining. I quite enjoy it.
It's I think some of the characters from what I've read are like kind of mismatches and mixes of like, a few different baseball characters. Like Jim Dugan is apparently like based on like two real life people. Like some of his attributes, people have theorised that they've just mashed those together to create Jim and a couple of other characters. But no, you're right. It's very much a feel good film. But before I mentioned that, what you said was prevalent as hell. I think there's nine major roles for the females here, which is incredible. And this is 2021, and I'm still saying it, that it's an incredible thing when, but to have a female director, I believe it's nine female leads as the ensemble is fantastic, and it's a great film. So go figure. But it is a heartwarming film. People have called it schmaltzy, and yeah, look, some of it is. But when you get into the film, or when you get towards the end, and the messages that come up, and the relationships, and the way that some of the characters begin to where they finish, it's just it's the kind, like you said, it's the kind of film that you can sit down, watch, get that warm feeling inside, and just bloody enjoy it. Do you know what I mean? You don't have to sit there like if you were going to watch Tenet and be like, right, I need to get my notepad and calculator out to try and work out what's going on. You can just have a great time.
I haven't seen that one yet, by the way.
You get your calculator and notepad out. I thought it was okay, but I would rather watch A League of Their Own over Tenet, so shoot me.
Fair enough. Touching on what you said about the relationships and stuff, this movie is really about family, and particularly the relationship between the two main characters, Dottie Henson and her sister Kit, and how they get recruited from their home in Oregon to come to this league after the scout, who's played by John Lovitz, and he's so funny. He's so funny in this movie. He has a pretty small part, and I actually read that his part he had a lot more scenes, but they narrowed it down to some of his like funniest stuff, just so that it could be just not overblown, But basically, it follows a relationship between these two sisters, and then their relationships with the other players of the team, and the coach or the manager, as they're called. And it's really nice when you eventually get to the outcome at the end of the movie. And I was watching some clips before we got on here, and someone commented on there's a clip at the end of the movie, and they said something about. Actually, you know what? I'm going to leave this until like later because we'll go through the movie. But anyway, a lovely relationship between two sisters. What it was like back in the day, where during World War II, when husbands and baseball players and all men from the United States and other countries were off to the war, and what the women had to endure during that time. It was very kind of fascinating idea of making a baseball league of women in the 40s. It was just kind of, it was kind of, I think at the time they thought it was, there's few clips in the movies where they're like, women in baseball, it was just like, I've never heard of it. And then it actually ended up becoming quite a popular thing. The league was around for about 11 years. So it's quite interesting. I had no idea that it even existed until I saw this movie. So it was really good on Penny Marshall. And sorry, who was the writer of this film?
The writer of this film was a guy called Lowell Gans and Babaloo Mandel.
Okay, for them to get together and get this movie out there, and tell this story, even if there's a lot of accuracies too, like the names of the teams, like where they're from, the outfits that they wore. some of, like you said, some of the characters are based off of like real people, but loosely. So
Mm-hmm.
it's just, I thought it was just really, I was like, oh, that's so cool. And they have a Hall of Fame with a section for the girls baseball league, and it's really lovely. I think it's a part of a piece of history, not just for Americans, but for other people to, take part in and get about.
Yeah, I like films like this where they kind of, like you, I wasn't aware that there was a female baseball league professionally in the United States, because I'm not a baseball fan particularly. I've seen a game. I've seen some guys slugging it out in the Diamond or whatever it's called, and it was all right. But I'm not a massive baseball fan at all.
Either.
So it was nice to see this slice of history that otherwise would have passed me by. I wouldn't have been aware of it. And I think it was handled well. There, like you said, there was a lot of moments where it was like, women in baseball, like women don't play baseball. Nobody's going to turn up to watch these broads playing baseball. That kind of, these dames, that kind of attitude, and especially when the uniforms are rolled out. Obviously, our female team's like, I'm not wearing that, and the guy's like, you can wear it or you can go home, but just see you later type thing. Is that kind of like power, assertiveness there, and a lot of the characters start off like that, including Jim Dugan. He just turns up pissed the whole, and he's like, he's not even watching the game. Gina Davis is Dottie is basically the coach, isn't she? And because he doesn't believe there's any value in this, he's just like, look, I'm a big deal. I've had a few issues, but I'm still a big deal. I'm a man. I shouldn't be doing this kind of stuff. I'll do it as a favour, but I don't really want to do it. And his arc is great. And towards the end, those attitudes are gone. And again, it's like, over the course of a season, it's not over the course of a film. So look at it like that. Over the course of a season, the attitudes go that, we end with like this sold out, packed out crowd for the final game. Everyone's loving it. Everyone's realising that there is value in this, and that's great. I love films that could do it like that, but also feel quite genuine. I knew, like most people, that it wasn't going to end with the league going out of business and nobody having jobs. We probably knew it was going to be a happy ending, but it's the journey getting there. And I think there's so many good little moments in this, and good scenes as well in this film, which really set up that really well shot ending as well, actually, to be honest. So what were some of when you think of this film, what's like the one thing that you think of that stands out?
I don't know if there's any like one thing. I really like when they do period pieces. When they are, how accurate they are with like costumes and how things look. That gives you the feel that you're really in this place at this time. And I thought they did a really, really good job with that. And so this was filmed in like 91, and so we're supposed to be back in 1943, 44 kind of thing. And I just like every shot, you just kind of feel like you're in 1943. Like there's really nothing that makes it feel like, oh, they're trying too hard. The hair, the costumes, the way they act. I love that overall sort of aesthetic of the film. So that's what really stands out to me. And just the way the story is told. I was actually just watching an extended clip in the beginning, start of the movie, where Dottie, so the opening of the movie, we find Dottie Henson, who is the main character in this film. She is an old lady, and she's at home, and she has grandchildren, and her daughter is there helping her pack to go to this reunion for the league, and she's telling her daughter that she doesn't want to go, and it didn't mean that much to her, and all this stuff. But her daughter's like, "No, you're going," and so we get off, and she arrives there, and she goes to the field, and there's a bunch of people playing baseball, like the ladies are playing baseball, and it just there's a shot of her just like looking around, and then she kind of looks up, and then this music like 1940s, like what do you call it? Swing? Like, I don't know what kind of music it is, but
vintage, we'll call it.
Yeah, let's call it vintage music. Starts playing, and then we're brought into the past, and this is where the story kind of begins. And I just love that. I love the transitions. I like I like when movies start with like stuff in the future, and then they start bringing you back to give you the story. So I like that. I'm a sucker for Tom Hanks, as you know.
Yeah.
I love Tom Hanks, so pretty much anything he's in I like. And I thought he did such a good job for this. He has a very famous line, and let's say it together. He has a very famous line in this movie that.
Okay. 3, 2, 1. There's no crying in baseball. There's no crying in baseball. See, for me, it sounded like a school teacher scolding like a 3-year-old person. There's no crying in baseball. Whereas you've got that savage North American tones that sell it.
Yeah. He's like, are you crying?
That's it.
Like, no.
Genuine anger coming out of his eyes and mouth. It's like, what's going on here? I love that. I love that scene. Obviously, it's because we all know Hanks as like America's favourite son. Tom Hanks is, he's Mr. America. He's the good guy. But I like how in this film they don't say he's not a villain by any means, but they subvert it somewhat that he's just a drunk. He hasn't got any interest in these women's capabilities. He just sees it all as a sham. He won't even pay attention to them. He doesn't, he'll make them cry if he has to because look, I'm a sports guy. That's what I do. So I like how Tom Hanks kind of played against character for a bit in this film.
Yeah, and so the story behind the character of Jimmy Dugan is that he played in oh my god, what is it called? The professional anyways, the men's league, professional baseball.
National Baseball League, NBL. I don't actually know what it's called. NBA, no, Major League Baseball.
Major League Baseball.
That's it. MLB.
MLB.
Just throw some letters out. We'll get there.
I think that we should put a disclaimer at the beginning. We don't know anything about baseball. I've actually been to one MLB game in Seattle. I watched the Seattle Mariners play the Toronto Blue Jays, and that was actually a ton of fun because
it's good when you're there. I went to see the Pittsburgh Pirates face someone. And it was great. I can't remember. It was great when you're there because you get swept up into the atmosphere, don't you?
Yeah. It's that's the American sports for you. Everything's grand, big, and people are so into it. And the cool thing about the game I went to was that so every time the Blue Jays play the Mariners, they do like a 3-game thing on like a weekend. All Canadians come from over the border from Vancouver and wherever, and they come and buy tickets to this game. So the stadium was just full. Like you would have thought you were at a Blue Jays game. Like this, all the fans were just like keeping really quiet and stuff. It was a ton of fun. I had a lot of fun, and it's actually not too hard to understand baseball. Like it's pretty easy to sport. Yeah. It's much harder to play than to understand it. But
big boys rounders or something. It's I don't mind it, but like you say, it's easy enough to get into. Like three strikes, you're out. Hit the ball, hit it out, home run. Hit it, get caught, you can still run to the bases. Blah blah. But so I don't mind it. This film did a good job of could have done a good job of introducing people to baseball because when I first saw this, because my brother used to watch this all the time, I imagined because he wanted to watch Gina Davis and Madonna. So he used to. I say that with no tongue in cheek. So it was on quite a lot as a kid, I remember. And it was kind of my first introduction to any kind of baseball, really, because otherwise it was only things you heard about and I wasn't a sheltered kid, but we didn't have it. It wasn't on UK TV that I remember. So we would have heard about it in films or maybe like The Simpsons or something would have had like a baseball skit or something. So it's kind of like one of the first real times I saw baseball.
It's kind of the no crying in baseball thing that like got around and that's how like people found out about it.
Yeah.
I wonder. But what I was saying about
classic line.
It is, and it's just like people use it for all kinds of things that are even unrelated to baseball.
There's no crying in podcasting, Lora.
Exactly. But as going back to Jimmy Dugan, so his character played MLB, and then he hurt his knee, and he couldn't play, and so he started drinking, and basically he's just sort of known as this like drunk washed up baseball player. And so when the owner of I guess the owner of the new women's league comes and like wants to offer him a job, he gets super excited because he thinks that he's gonna like offer him something like that has to do with men's baseball or just something, lucrative anyway. And he's like, I want you to coach this women's team. And he's just like, and so that's why you see his character pretty much for the first quarter of the movie, just sort of like, not interested. And then he realizes that the women got something to give. They're quite good, and there's a little bit of a shot of how the women tried out for the league, which is really fun. There's this fun scene when we first meet Madonna's character and Rosie O'Donnell's character, and they're talking, and they're from New York, and they meet up. They see Gina Davis and I should say Dottie and Kit, and Rosie O'Donnell throws Marla. She throws a ball. Not Marla. Sorry, who's Rosie O'Donnell play? Sorry, guys.
Doris.
Okay, so she throws a ball. She turns around and throws a ball really hard, and then Gina Davis catches it with her hand, and they're like, "Whoa!" Because they're like
that really satisfying clap when she catches it.
Yeah, yeah. So there's a lot of cool scenes like that. Apparently, so I read that a lot of the bruises and things that the women got in the movie were actually real from doing.
Yeah, I heard that.
Real catches, real slides, and stuff like that. So, who was it that got that big, huge bruise on her thigh? She apparently had it for a month or something, or a year, or something like that. So, yeah, lots of fun, cool baseball stuff that you won't see anymore. But
you wonder actually about that, because obviously everybody, apart from Madonna, for the most part, really got stuck in, and they carried their injuries into the film, and they actually got written into the characters. So that bruise was on her thigh, and they showed it in the film, and it was used as her part of her character and part of the training and what these gals had to go through to get anywhere in this league. So I like the commitment that the actresses all had for this role. You wouldn't get it now, as you just said. I can't imagine that you might. Well, some would probably be like, yes, I'll batter and bruise my body for the role because that's what I want to do. But you wonder whether they'd be allowed to do that nowadays, when you've got sort of broken bones or little fractures, bodily bruises like that. Big, it's not even little; it's a big one like that. You wonder whether they'd get away with it now. But I liked that scene, like you say, with the tryouts, because it's little moments like that. It's not just, right, Dottie, we need you to come and be like the face of the organisation, because that's what the agent, Ernie, John Lovitz' character, is basically seen in Dottie. She's good at baseball, she's good looking, it's the perfect package. That's kind of how he's seen it through his eyes. The guys are off fighting the war, so we need something to sell. We need a package to sell. There she is. Bringing along Kit, who they establish in the film is kind of like second to Dottie in every way, and she feels that. And then obviously Marla's character, geez, I like to ask you about her in a minute, but I like that they didn't just pick these people out and then the next thing, the league started and they're really good. They took their time to find these people, show them training, show them kind of getting to know each other, the scenes on the bus, going back and forth to games, obviously the scenes in the bars. They showed the camaraderie and the journey to get to the end. And I appreciate that as well, because it could have been quite easy probably just to have get straight into the action and get more baseball and more like heart pumping drama going. But no, they went down the character route a lot more. And I mentioned Marla. Now Marla Hooch is very much played for laughs in this film. She's basically labelled as the ugly duckling. She doesn't look like what the league want of a player, despite the fact she's an absolute like monstrously good hitter. How do you think that character was handled now? Like looking at it now.
I think the accuracy for the time and what they were going for, like you said, they were looking for lookers, basically, right? and she wasn't. So there's this. Okay, guys. So there's this scene where we first meet Marla, and she's trying out for them. So it's John Lovett's character, who's the scout, and then Kit and Dottie, who are along with him. They're basically, they had to stop in, I think it was Michigan or something like that, to see about another girl. And so they go to this gymnasium. It's like indoors, and there's some ball players there, and then there's Marla, and her father is like kind of the coach. And so we see sort of like a long shot of her hitting some balls, and I'm like, wow, she's good. And then John Lovitz has to like bring her over, and her father's like saying all these like nice things about her and stuff, and then she like lifts her hat up, and John Lovett's character is just like, ooh, like,
it's like Jesus,
no,
yeah.
like, no, we can't take her because, you know. And then he makes some sort of like derogatory comment about her looks or whatever. Obviously, that kind of shit wouldn't fly today, and it's just so like it. I mean, it's not like it doesn't exist today that people are picked for things because of their looks over their talents.
Of course.
And so it's kind of sad, you know. And then the two, you know, Dottie and Kit, then had to stand up for her because the scout was like, "Hey, we're leaving," and then they're like, "No, you're not gonna take her because she isn't good looking or whatever." And then you know, they have sort of like a standoff there, and then we eventually see her father kind of apologize to John Lovett's person that he raised her like a boy and all this kind of stuff, you know. I don't really know much to say about it. I mean, it's an interesting thing that they put that in the movie. I think they're just trying to say something like, you know, because there actually is a lot of accuracy, like we were talking about the tryouts and stuff, and then how they modeled the uniforms for the girls, the ones that got picked, and you know, the charm school stuff. So all the players that were selected to play on the teams had to go to charm school at night so that they could be ladies.
That's right. Etiquette.
Yeah, etiquette classes. So there was still a lot of, you know, obviously just because they were going to be ball players, there's a lot of stigma. The fact that they were women, you know, they had to be and act and look a certain way. In 1943, so I mean, it is, I think, feel pretty accurate for the time, but I think, I don't know, nowadays, like, I just hope that particular scene with Marla doesn't discourage people, that women, we need to focus on our talents, and we should be appreciated for what we can do and not how we look. So I'm glad they brought her in because she actually got a good storyline there.
Yes.
So there's a couple surprises that, like, did you find the ending kind of surprising? Like what happened with the teams? Like, if you didn't know who won that game, did it surprise you? Because you can easily look it up to see who won the series, the World Series that year.
It did. It did. It did and it didn't, because as soon as Kit was traded to the Racine Bells, again, I've seen this film before, but I hadn't seen it for so long, where a lot of the stuff was coming back to me, to the point where, come the end of the film, I was like, who actually wins this bloody thing? But I kind of remembered, I was like, okay, well, we've got the Rockford Peaches with Dottie, she's their star player. Kit's been traded to Racine, and you know they're going to meet in the final, and you know there's going to be a clash at the end. But I couldn't remember who actually came out on top. And the question I've got written down for you, and you probably know what it's going to be, about that ending, I've got it in capital letters, it's highlighted in yellow. Did she drop the ball on purpose at the end? Because there's a lot of people theorising that because Kit barges into her, she sees her, she's like, no, I'm out. I'm taking you down with me. She barges into Dottie, who's, as far as my understanding of baseball, has actually struck her out. But anyway, she knocks her over. Dottie then drops the ball. Therefore, it's a no ball. She hasn't caught it according to the umpires. But did she drop it on purpose, do you think, or was it a legitimate accident?
So I saw that question a lot too, and at first, probably the first, few times I watched it, I always thought she did drop it on purpose, to give Kit her moment. But I think this story is about the progression of these two women who are, want different things. One of them Kit is the sister who they say in the movie, only was able to come along to tryouts because they wanted Dottie, and Dottie wouldn't go without her sister. Yeah. And Dottie was not really interested in going in the first place, and she liked baseball, but she wasn't passionate, and she didn't love baseball like Kit did. She was also married, and she wanted to serve family and all this stuff, but her husband was in the war. And so then you find them in this league, and you realize that Dottie's she's a good baseball player, Mm-hmm. Kit is also a good player, but she's very stubborn and young, and she can't lay off the high one. And it's the progression. The story is the progression of how these sisters kind of mature, and what it shows what really matters to them in the end. And I think that was the story's way of saying that, Kit's determination and her passion for baseball finally paid off. And I think that Dottie didn't mean to drop the ball. And I don't. My thought is that she did not do it on purpose. That's my official standing on it. So
stamped with the royal seal of. Smacks my own hand. Stamped with the royal seal of approval. I think the way you've explained that kind of sways me somewhat, because if Dottie drops the ball on purpose, it kind of negates Kit's achievement, because it's kind of, even then it's well, you only won the final, Kit, because I dropped the ball on purpose. Right. So it's like a flawed victory.
I said I would only go if you came with me.
Yeah. Exactly. So you only got here because of me, and you only won because I let you win. It isn't. It's kind of it's not. It doesn't really send out the best message for Dottie's character, and it doesn't really give. It's a hollow victory for the audience, knowing that Kit only won. She didn't win based on her own talent. So I'd like to. When I watched it the other day for this show, I didn't even think. It didn't even enter my head that she dropped it on purpose. I just thought she's just got absolutely clothesline there. She's got speared. And the way they show in slow motion, both of them as clattering against the floor, I'm just thinking real world terms. If somebody slammed into me at that speed, I'm not sure I'd have any time to kind of process. Oh, if I drop the ball now, my sister will win the World Series, and then she'll be happy and blah blah. No, you just get smacked, and everything just goes, and it's So I don't think she did drop it on purpose. I think it was she was knocked over, and the force of that impact. Yeah. Knocked the ball out of her hand. But I'd seen that was causing a lot of, discourse, but a lot of cool discussion online. And it seems to be what this film is, not what it's known for, because it's for that quote, but the ending has been quite ambiguous to so many for so long. And I guess if people can take from it what they want, if they want to believe that, actually Dottie was being a good sister and looking out for her sister and wanted her to go on and have a career in baseball, and she thought, well, maybe the only way she's going to do that is if, she has this moment, then okay, great, that's a nice way of looking at it. But on the flip side, she hasn't earned it because she wouldn't let her earn it, blah, blah. So there's that side. But I don't think she did drop it on purpose. And when you were talking about Marla and her treatment, I agree on that as well. And it's kind of just dawned on me as well that, it's very obviously that that John Lovitz's character is written like that, because in the beginning of the film, he's watching them milking cows, and he's just sort of if you milk Ernie, that would bruise me. And he's and then he's saying, come on, I'm not staying around. I've got to go home, see the wife for a bit, give her a little pickle tickle. And, I'm going to come back. He's got I picked that up. I was like, Jesus Christ. So he's got a very kind of laissez-faire attitude towards what he says to women. So I think whilst she was obviously, the character of Marla was played for that effect, I also think that Ernie was also written to be an absolute bastard of a character. But at the same time, there's the advert for the baseball league, which was showing these young, good-looking female baseball players hitting home runs, posing for the camera, kissing the fans in the audience, and then Marla is like way back as a long shot, just waving with a voiceover. So they kind of play up for a joke in the film as well, a joke that obviously Penny Mitchell's in on because she's directing it. So it was. So one of the things I thought, and because you've obviously said it now, but I was like, I wonder what I wonder what Laura's going to say about this when I speak to her. Not for any other reason other than I knew we were going to chat, and it kind of clicked to me. I was like, is that like the way they've handled that? Is that good, or should I just accept that it's just the way they were, the attitudes back then? And I've always said in older films, I mean, this isn't an old film, but you kind of have to have one eye closed to a lot of things because that's how they were written at the time, and that's what flew then. Okay, fine. If it doesn't fly now, then I don't have to accept it, but I will always accept that that's what it was like back then. And like you said, in the 40s, like the guys in the World War had the pin-ups on the noses of their planes and all that. So that was like the era. They wanted these kind of Barbie dolls, as Madonna called Gina Davis, playing baseball because that's what the guys wanted. I think one of the headlines said straight out of the kitchen onto the ball field, and it's all that kind of crap that they're peddling as well. So I think obviously the we mentioned up top the men were written to be pigs,
right,
to start with at least, and then Jim Dugan has that wonderful turn. And one of my favourite scenes is it's not a favourite scene because it's fun, but it's the telegram scene where obviously the girls are preparing for the big game, and the telegram delivery dude comes in. He said, "I've got a telegram from the War Office." So now everybody knows what one of those is. It's a casualty at war, probably a death in service. And the guy's like, "Oh, there's no name on this, huh? Gosh, someone. It's literally like someone's died out here. One of your husbands has died, but I can't tell you who. See ya." And Jimmy's like, "Give me the letter," and he starts roughing him up, and he's like, "No, I'm not." And it's that moment when Jimmy's like, he's taking no crap. He's standing up for the hearts of his team. He's not. This isn't a white knight kind of thing. The guy's just like, "Look, you've got something in your hand of utmost importance. Baseball doesn't matter here. We need somebody here needs to know what's happened. Otherwise, they're going to be thinking about this until you come back." And he stands up for his team and like I say, the hearts of his team. Then, and that was one of my favourite scenes. And then, of course, when he gives the envelope to Betty, and she just absolutely breaks down. It's a powerful scene in a few ways, and that's probably one of my favourites.
Yeah, it's incredibly emotional scene, and actually, that scene always stands out to me. My partner is a veteran, and we have friends and people who have lost people in the war, and so it's such a sad scene. And Betty, they call her Betty Spaghetti in the movie. The character whose husband dies. She is Penny Marshall's daughter. And so, she is. And so it was like a Marshall affair, that movie. So both Penny directed, her brother was in the movie, and her daughter was in the movie. And then I think like a cousin or something of theirs was cast in the movie as well, but I can't remember who it was.
Wow.
Yeah. So that is was kind of like a wake up call for the reality of the times. Was that there was a war going on, and Hitler is literally alive at this time, and people are losing their husbands and stuff. And then you kind of get what we get after that is the lady's back at the house, and Dottie is crying because she's thinking about her husband, and then her husband ends up showing up, which is just kind of like so coincidental that like that happened, and then she's crying about her husband, she misses him, is worried about him, and then he just like is there suddenly. So he was injured and he got shot in the leg or something like that, and he came home, and then she was ready to leave. So there's a couple things while you were talking that I was just thinking about. So the scene at the end with the dropping of the ball and everything, dropping of the ball, two things that should never be said in the same sentence. Dottie was ready to cream her sister like a few minutes before that. She was telling the pitcher to throw high balls because Kit couldn't hit him, and she was ready to like win, and ready for her sister to lose. So That's another reason why I don't think that she dropped the ball on purpose. Because yeah, she was like she was there to win that game. But back to the thing, we see again that Dottie she's ready to kind of up and leave the league because she wants to be with her husband who comes back, and Jimmy Dugan and Dottie have this sort of what kind of a relationship would you call it? Like it's a friendly relationship, but like
it's a professional relationship, isn't it?
yeah, it's an interesting one. Like
Yeah.
they're sort of. So I read a little trivia tidbit that the studio wanted Dottie to save Jimmy from his drinking, and then so Penny Marshall had her give him a soda.
Gotcha. That's just a soda.
Here you go. Here's a soda. Your drinking is cured.
Yes.
So it's a professional relationship, but I also think there was like this sort of understanding between them. Like I felt like Dottie could probably, for some reason, relate the most to Jimmy out of like everyone, out of like all the women that were there. She seemed to like warm up the most to Jimmy. You know,
It was like a begrudging respect to start with, wasn't there? Because when Jimmy realised actually she's kind of like the de facto coach of this team in my drunken stupor, and she's quite good at ball as well.
Right, and I think in a way, Jimmy kind of looked up to her. So you see this sort of relationship play out through the movie, and she's about to leave with her husband, and Jimmy like kind of gives her shit. Like you really just like we're now past this drunken phase, and he's like in it. He's like, I want to win, and he's all serious manager, coach guy, and he gives her shit for basically picking up and abandoning the team, like right when they're getting to the World Series or getting really good, and then so we see them leave, and then she ends up coming back, and she sort of like surprises him and stuff like that. So I quite enjoyed the sort of back and forth between those two characters. I liked that. Let me see if I read somewhere that they want to maybe have like a romance or something that I can't remember. But I'm glad
I'm not sure what about that.
Not to do that. While I'm all here for romance, as you know, this movie really, I think, benefited from the relationships between the women and the people like on the team. So
Dottie she spent a lot of the film quite rightly saying, I'm married, I'm just waiting for my husband to come home from fighting in a goddamn war. And for that to kind of be thrown away for a washed up boozer at the time, it would have been like, what about your husband who's fighting? What happens when he comes back? Is he going to come back a heartbroken hero just because? It would have shone a bad light on the character of Jim and Dottie. It wouldn't have done them any favours whatsoever, unless they were going to write the husband out so he wasn't in the story at all. Because I can't see any way that the husband's in the story and it works.
Like if he died or something, maybe. But even then, I don't know. It worked out the way they did it. And now I've kind of forgotten all the other things that I was thinking about while you were talking. But
just how well those two, just like the kind of odd relationship that Jim and Jimmy and Dottie had, and I'm glad I didn't go for that romance, because this film works well because you don't have that. Yeah, you've got the girls in the bar having a great time, but that's just young people having fun. And we get obviously Marla. She finds Nelson. Nelson's like besotted, and I was like, "You go, Nelson. You seem like one of the good guys." And as it turns out, he is one of the good guys.
So that's the thing about this storyline for Marla that I found really interesting. So you've got this sort of like token. I'm putting quotes like ugly girl, and she's really good at ball, and they go to this bar one night. So Madonna's character, who's quite like, I actually quite enjoyed Madonna in this movie. I heard she was quite the diva and drama queen during the filming of this. But I did like how she played this character. And so anyway, they have this sort of this lady chaperone that kind of tells them where they need to be and make sure that they're not misbehaving and stuff like that. And Madonna has this idea because they want to go to this bar and see this band, and she's like, we're gonna poison her. They poison this poor lady, and she's like puking all night and stuff. And
She's out of it.
They sneak out and they go to this bar, and they're doing all this like cool dancing, like 40s, whatever it's called, swing and whatever. And Marla gets really hammered. She just is sloshed, and they're looking for her. They have to get out of there because like someone is coming since they heard that they were there and they need to leave. And they're like, where's Marla? And all this time you're hearing this woman singing in the background, but you don't know that it's actually Marla to this guy who's like looking at her like she's just like the sweetest angel, and she's like, oh, love you, Nelson. And
I'm singing for Nelson.
Yeah. Come here, baby.
That's it. And Nelson's like, look, I'll take her home. I'll make sure she gets home safe. And I'm thinking, Nelson, don't shoot your shot just yet, son.
And so
you did.
They give Marla the love interest, and she ends up getting married, and she leaves the team because she gets married. So that's kind of like, I just thought that was an interesting thing. Like I guess I wasn't really expecting it. So if anyone was going to get a love interest, they gave it to Marla. It was nice. I mean, yeah. So that was quite funny. The stage scene was a really funny moment there.
It didn't feel like OTT. I didn't watch it, and I was like, really? They're going this route? I was like, you damn right, you go, girl. And Nelson looked like the son of a guy who'd had unfortunately probably been put in the same situation as Marla, where he'd been held back or been pushed away a lot, and it's just two kindred spirits who'd found each other, pissed in a karaoke bar wherever they were in the Midwest. And I was like, yeah, you do it. And it felt good. And obviously we see them later on as well, or we hear about them later on at the end, and I was like, that's really quite sweet. And we also, let's not forget Shirley, the character of Shirley. She learns to read as well. Anne Cusack's character, she can't read at the start, and the coach is kind of like, look, if your name's not on a list, get out of here. And she's kind of doesn't want to say that she can't read. And who was it Madonna's character, or was it?
No,
I can't remember who it was.
It was someone else.
Somebody else goes up obviously and says, like, what's your name? And she said Shirley, and she finds her name on there, and she's really, really she's like over the moon. And then suddenly the coach is like, well, come and join the team. I was like, well, you had a quick turn, didn't you, dick?
Yeah. Very common, and it kind of surprised me seeing that. Like the movie came out when we were like 7 or something. So I probably didn't watch it till I was like 10 or whatever. But surprising for me, like, as someone probably who could read at the time I first watched that movie, to see like an adult having a hard time, like, can't even read her own name. But at the time, like, some people were illiterate, like, they couldn't read, and so like it was kind of like a weird moment. It's like an awkward moment, but also like at the end you find out she makes the team, so you're kind of like, yay, But
and then she can read by the end.
Teaches her Madonna's character teaches her how to read on the bus with a dirty book.
Mills and Boone's Joppy. It's like, what are you teaching her? It's like, it doesn't matter. Words are words, basically. Yeah. It was great. There's little moments like that, like the fun little humour like that, and it works because the characters are written that well. And I think Madonna's fine in this. She's good as May. And the way that May is written, that seems very much in character for her to not just teach her to read, because she's obviously a nice girl, but what she's teaching her to read is like, oh, isn't this sweet? Hold on, what she teaches her to read? Oh, bloody hell. It's great. So we get that. So Shirley, she learns how to read in the book. So she gets in the film. So she gets her little arc. Marla gets an arc as well. So, and everyone kind of gets their little moment as well, whether that's part of the montages of the Peaches as they're like storming through the league. Everybody kind of gets a little moment, whether it's a shot of them hitting a home run, a great catch, or whatever it might be. So
there's a little bit of background for all the, not all the characters, but some of the characters they do a little bit. Like when they say, oh, they were doing kind of profiles on them, and this person likes to sew, and this person does tea, and
yes.
all that kind of.
That was it. Like, she's not only a great pitcher, she's also great at serving tea. Like serving tea to the geese. It's like, oh, it is like, again, if you look at it, it's like this whole like satire of it's a great satirical advert, like a piss take. But I guess as a 7-year-old as well, when this film came out, or again when I saw it, I don't know, it probably wouldn't have been much later than that one. I was probably the same time as you did. The idea of seeing a 9+ ensemble of females it wasn't weird back then. It was just kind of, it was just a film. It's just like, it's a film about, female baseball players. Great, I'm 10, this is fun. Whereas now we can look at it and be like, oh, god damn, you don't see, I know we've spoken about it, but you just don't see that very often. It's funny how perspectives change from, obviously, when you first see it and you enjoy it for what it is, to becoming these jaded 30-somethings, and we're like, God almighty, you don't get this anymore, do you? So it's interesting from that side as well.
Yes, 100% actually. Because now you actually kind of ponder it, and it's sort of bewildering. And this time to even think that they made a women's league in baseball, when most of professional sports leagues in America, like the ones that you see on TV and stuff anyway, don't include women. So the fact that they actually made an entire league and that it lasted for about 11 years is quite something. The idea of the formation of this league was to have the entertainment of baseball, because a lot of the but like quite a few Major League Baseball players went off to the war, and so they needed another source of entertainment for the people, so that they can continue going to these stadiums and watching baseball. So they made this women's league. So it's just, I don't know if it's just like, obviously we have women's hockey and stuff, but basketball and things like that. But it's not like at the forefront, as it were, back then. And I don't know if we'll ever really see or have the interest. Is probably not the same. It is a completely different time. So it's something to kind of ponder and think about. A really, really good piece of history. And at the end of this movie, when we kind of come back to the future,
yeah, that's a good film on here.
Yeah, to where we left Dottie, like the old Dottie, off. Oh, by the way, so I always thought it was like weird. I thought the actress who played the old version of Dottie looked very similar to her.
Yeah,
her voiceover. It was a voiceover of Gina Davis, so all the things she's saying is like not the actual actress's like voice. I was like, how come she sounds so much like Gina Davis?
I know.
Is that Gina Davis and stuff? Like, it wasn't her.
That's grade A makeup effects. That is to make Gina Davis look like a little bit like someone else, but still sound like her. I couldn't believe it's Lynn Cartwright who plays Dottie. I didn't realise that they dubbed the voice, because I'd kind of come to terms at the end. I was like, okay, it's not Gina Davis, because I was like, none of the other elder characters are played by. That's clearly not Madonna aged up. That's not Rosie O'Donnell. I was like, okay, so it probably isn't Gina Davis. I was like, why the hell do they sound like each other then? And yeah, two of them were dubbed. I think it was just Kit and Gina were dubbed over, but I had no idea.
Yeah, no, I didn't either. And but her, I mean, watching the opening scene now, you can, when you can kind of tell sometimes when they're doing voiceovers, like the ADR for the movies, you can tell some scenes where they didn't catch some. So ADR is like when the actors go into the studio after a film is finished, and they record, do the voicing for their characters, where maybe the mic missed something, or they needed like them to do some kind of breathing or make some kind of sound or something. So the whole, like, that character, Selena Cartwright's character, Dottie's the old Dottie, her whole, like, all of her stuff was voiced over by Gina Davis, so we don't actually get to hear her own voice in the movie. But I guess it just makes it so much more believable that that is, like, the old version of Dottie,
Yeah. Especially when you just spend 2 hours with her. Some people do ADR for massive blockbuster films in their cupboard, in their closet as well. But that's the story for another time. But they go in there and say, you have his power. You're a Hinson, Dottie.
So
Yeah.
embarrassing. So
I know. I'm sorry. I said we wouldn't mention it. We wouldn't mention it. It's like a thing we have to do. Yeah, I actually like that because that's again when I mentioned kind of the kind of mawkish, melodramatic, saccharine, sweet element of the film. That's kind of it. Where you've got at the beginning, you have old Dottie. She's her husband's passed away. She's by herself, and she's kind of been coerced into going to this meetup. We're not entirely sure what the meetup entails fully. And then we get the entirety of the film is the quote unquote like flashback, revisiting those memories, and then at the end, back again with the teams back together, and we find out that obviously, sadly, some of them have passed away, including Jimmy, and that young lad is there as well. Stillwell, Evelyn's son, he's there. He's played by an older version. Mark Holton plays him. So we find out that he's there to represent his mother who passed away. So there's that kind of sad side as well, and it's because the only reason you care about that is because of exactly what happened throughout that flashback scene, if you will, the reminiscent scene. It's because you care about the characters because they were so well played and so well written. And I don't know if it's just because I've got soft in my old age or it's just this whole lockdown. But I was thinking, this is quite upset. It's quite sad by the end of it when they're all really happy to see each other and they're explaining what happened to the others, and like the little lad, you're again Liz, Stillwell was there, and I was like, I really wanted Jimmy to throw another glove at you during some of those scenes, but now I'm really sad. And even at the beginning when Marla and her father, he's kind of saying, the way he raised her, and he's so proud of his daughter. He wants the best for his daughter, and he feels like he's holding her back. And I was like, what if that's me one day? Do you know? You have those like really weird thoughts that go through your head. It's like, all I want is the best, and I know. So there was that kind of thing, and it's that perspective. As a kid, you don't really see that. You just see it as a story element, just get on with it. Whereas now you can attribute so much more to them, and it comes. So whereas I can see why people would say, it's very syrupy. But that's why the film works, because you have that kind of really nice bookend, and in the middle you get the drama, the humour, the tragedy, and stuff like that, which makes that beginning and end work so well. I think, anyway.
Yeah, and like I said at the beginning, it's it's about family, and not just like blood family like Kit and Dottie, but family that you make along the way. And there's a lot of discourse in a franchise about this whole found family thing. But
Dottie Skywalker. That bit was weird when you said that, but
oh my gosh. Okay. Yeah. Somewhere I actually saw a YouTube comment that was saying how they thought it was interesting how at the end when we see them at the Hall of Fame, we see Dottie there, and then there's a scene where she looks upon her sister Kit for the first time in a while, and they see each other and they smile and stuff. And Kit is there with like her husband and like a whole big
brood,
right? Like all her grandkids and her kids and stuff like that. And Dottie is there by herself. When in the beginning of the movie, Dottie's all about her husband and wanting to start a family and all this stuff. And Kit's just like wants to play baseball, and everything is baseball, and start a family later. And so we see them like in, even though Dottie did get married and she obviously did have kids, it was just such a different thing to see. That
a great shout.
Now is the one that has the family and whatever. So yeah, I just thought that was an interesting comment. I was like, it's a good observation to make. I'm not sure if they did that on purpose or not, but yeah.
I'd like to think so, because that's a really good point. I hadn't thought about it like that. I was just getting so into it, and I was like, I promised myself I wouldn't cry. But it's a really good observation that Dottie, she's not alone, of course, but in that scene, she's looking at her sister and like, almost because of what happened during that game, look what you have made. Look what's become of you. And yeah, it's almost like a role reversal, kind of. Because obviously, like you said, Dottie did get married. She did have kids, and obviously her husband's passed away, so obviously he couldn't be there. But I think there was something to be said that they showed Kit showing up with, every single member of the family.
Yeah.
I think there was that was an obvious beat for them to put in there. hey, it worked because and there wasn't any silliness because the kids were like, hey, there's Auntie Dottie. Hey, it wasn't like they didn't play up this silly storyline that they haven't spoken for decades because of the incident. There was none of that, and I like that as well.
Exactly. Yeah. Feel good, heartwarming. I get. There's a few scenes in this movie that I actually kind of tear up as well. The scene with Betty finding out her husband died. The scene at the end where Kit and after the game when Kit wins and Dottie, saying goodbye to each other, and Kit just like she thinks that her sister doesn't even really like her. Like there was obviously a little bit of a rivalry between them at the end because they got into a fight and stuff. But Dottie says, I love you, Kit, and she's like, really? Like she just can't believe that her sister like said that to her and stuff. And I just thought that was like so sad, And I was like, of course your sister loves you. Like at the end of the day, it is just a game. You know what I mean? And that's kind of what Dottie says. She's like, it's a game, and there are other important things in life, and it's like totally fine to love something like that, and even if it is a game, and to be dedicated to it and everything. I think the players who are like that are, the ones that do the best. But there are other important things in life, and that to them is like for her that was family, right? And then later we see that that was clearly something that Kit learns later, that yes, family is important. So that Hall of Fame for the All-American Girls League is an actual thing, and one day I'd like to go see that. I think that would be kind of cool.
Yeah, and I can't speak for. I assume you were the same as me, that before seeing this film, or probably even since revisiting this film, I wasn't even aware that there was a Hall of Fame for the AAGPBL, was a mouthful. I didn't even realise there was a Hall of Fame to go and visit because, like you mentioned, we know there's a hockey Hall of Fame because I very much would like to go there. We know there's a Hall of Fame for every other sport, but I didn't know there was a female baseball Hall of Fame. So, do you know, if you do ever go there, do send us the pictures and we'll put them up on the socials and be like, linking into that episode. Do you remember when Lora said she was going to the Hall of Fame? There she is.
Yeah, the section. So there obviously is a baseball Hall of Fame, and then in the baseball Hall of Fame, there's a section for the AAGPBL. So yeah, definitely would like to see that. Yeah, I remember Laura said she was 10 years.
Even if it's like, yeah, exactly, it'll be like the end of the film, but we're all old and grey, and it's like, I finally made it. It's like, excellent. Instagram's not around anymore, but I don't know. I'll post it on a wall somewhere in Essex over here. You mentioned family is very important, obviously to the character of Helen Haley. Her red hat was very important. Has anyone seen my red hat? Dottie quite rightly says, "I'll piss on your red hat." Well, that seemed uncalled for. I'd forgotten about that. I laughed my head off at that because he just didn't seem like Dottie to just lash out like that. But hell, well done. Fist bump moment. Piss on your hat. Take that, Helen.
Yeah. No, there's no lots of swearing in this movie. There's no cussing, but there's like a lot of stuff. Like there's quite a bit of stuff like that. Like they're back in the day, like their way of saying things, like stop acting like such a lush, whereas like us, we would be like, stop acting like such a douchebag or something.
Or worse.
Yeah, or worse. So I like that. I kind of like that.
Yeah, there's lots of fun little moments like that. Like in the drinking scene in the bar, there's lots of fun moments, lots of cool moments with obviously Madonna and her character when she's dancing with the dude. Rosie O'Donnell's character of Doris, and the way she's sort of hanging off every word everyone's saying. There's this guy's chasing after her, and she's loving it because you later find out about her relationship with her husband and that as well. So,
right. I kind of like it between Doris and May, like how so the Donna's character apparently was a stripper. That was her job in New York.
Taxi dancer.
And And Doris's character is is her bodyguard, or like the bodyguard for her like dad's bar.
That's it.
It's so funny.
But together, they made it work.
Yeah, I like that.
They had a good chemistry, and again, films are made and die on their chemistry of the characters. And if you don't believe them, then you don't get them. And I believe that of everybody. Obviously, there were behind the scenes issues mainly with Madonna, but I believe these people were teammates. I believe that they forged their relationships, and on set, I thought, well, on screen, so I thought Madonna was fine. I thought she was good in this film. There's nothing wrong with her acting whatsoever. And again, off air, she had a few issues with Gina Davis, with the city of with Illinois, basically, and Indiana, Evansville.
Yeah.
So
I'll read a little tidbit.
Yes, I think you've got the same one I thought of as well.
Yeah. So according to a handwritten letter she wrote to photographer Stephen Meisel, Madonna was miserable during production. She says, "I cannot suffer any more than I have in the past month. Learning how to play baseball with a bunch of girls, in brackets, yuck, in Chicago, double yuck. I have a tan, I'm dirty all day, I hardly ever wear makeup. Penny Marshall, Laverne," I think there's supposed to be a swear word in there, "Gina Davis is a Barbie doll, and when God decided where the beautiful men were going to live in the world, he did not choose Chicago. I have made a few friends, but they are athletes, not actresses. They have nothing on the house of extravaganza. I wish I could come to New York."
Yeah,
and
so there you go.
Rude to just everybody she came across, outside of filming and stuff, like restaurants and bars, and hotels and all that kind of stuff. So that she really lived up to the whole diva thing.
What a goon! Yeah, and the other one I saw was that when they were filming the final battle, the final match of in the World Series, during, because it was 100 degrees, it was hot, and everybody's in their period clothing. During kind of takes, Rosie O'Donnell would do some stand up for the crowd. Tom Hanks would do puppet shows from behind the dugout with. And the actors would pretend to be Madonna. So they'd come out and pretend to be Madonna and sing Madonna songs, because she wasn't going to sing for these yokels. She even said that she was flabbergasted. She was perplexed at the idea of being asked to perform for these extras. So she wasn't a team player off set, which is disappointing, because she's good in the film, but it's just not a good look, is it?
Her song at the end of the film, which I love. It's one of my favorite songs. This used to be my playground.
I like that song.
I wrote that song, and she was nominated for a Golden Globe for that song. So she did contribute. She contributed a lot to this movie in the way of acting and singing. But a little bit of a diva. A little bit
just a bit, but that's really what. At the end of the day, that is kind of what matters, because I think 95, 96, 7, 8, 9% of people probably have no idea that any of that happens. So they watch the film and they're like, "Oh, Madonna was nice in this," and they get on with it. Obviously, look into it. She wasn't, by the sound of it, wasn't malicious. It was just, like you say, just diva, and just kind of didn't want to associate with the others because they weren't to her level or whatever. But then you see someone like Lady Gaga in A Star Is Born, perfect lady on and off screen. So eat that, Madonna.
And I'll be working with my favorite, Adam Driver, in a mafia film or whatever it is.
I know, it's going to be so good.
That'd be interesting, yeah.
Oh, I'm looking forward to that. Anything with Adam Driver in, I'm sold, and obviously I know you are as well. So I'm trying to think. Obviously, we haven't mentioned the final. I think that's kind of like my final positive point. I don't even think I've got any negatives, but is the final match in the World Series. You obviously mentioned what happened at the end with Dottie and Kit, but I think that the actual match itself was filmed and portrayed really quite well. I really like how they kind of wrung as much tension out of it as possible, and the Peaches are winning, and then Racine take the lead, and then Rockford managed to make a play which puts them one up, and then they have a disaster in the field, and Racine lead, and you're like, and then it's great the way it goes back and forward. And again, to me, to these eyes and ears, it didn't feel like cheesy. It didn't feel silly. It just felt like two good teams going at each other.
Yeah, it was like really exciting. Like you said, I think it was shot really well. Like Penny Marshall, like this is just such a this is a good movie. Super for me. I'm not a feminist. I wouldn't say that I support women, and the fact that a woman made this movie is such a cool thing to me. But there's, like you said, a lot of tension. It was super exciting. But the thing is like if you don't know the history of it, like now you could Google it and you can look up like who won this game in 1943, and you'll know it's the Racine Bells. But back then, you didn't know, and we're following this team, which is the Peaches, basically throughout the whole movie.
Yeah.
Even when Kit gets traded to the Racine Bells, like we don't really see we see, but they don't follow that team at all. Like we don't really get to know anything about the team. So you're thinking like, oh, like this is probably like the Peaches are probably going to win this. It's like this is the team we've been following throughout this whole movie, and they've been getting us hyped up about it and all this kind of stuff. And you're like rooting for them at this point.
And that's
right?
what happens in sports teams, isn't it? Usually, either the underdog wins, or you get that kind of happy ending where the team you've been following has had these ups and downs. They're going to hold that trophy up at the end. It's kind of the formula for sports films.
Exactly. And so then it's kind of a shocker, but then not at the same time that the Peaches end up losing this game. But I love it. Like I love, like we see Kit and she gets her teammates hoist her up, and and it's a good time. But like you kind of feel this like initial shock because you're like, oh, that's not. They made us kind of like fall in love with Beach's team this whole movie, and then suddenly Racine wins. You're like, oh, okay. But really, you're supposed to be cheering for Kit. That's the whole kind of, I think, point is that it's about Kit and Dottie as well, but like and their relationship. I thought that was really interesting. I love when the underdog wins. I think it's good every once in a while to like sort of what's the word?
Shake it up a bit.
Expectations, shake it up a bit. So that's spoiler alert. That's what happens. They lose.
Yeah, they don't win. Yeah, take that. Suck on that.
Actually, the Peaches actually win the most World Series. I think 5 out of the 10 or 11 that they had. They won the most. I think they won the year after, and then the year after that, and then just so you know, eventually they do end up winning.
It worked out right in the end, okay, guys. It worked out all right in the end.
Yeah.
No, yeah, I agree. And they've been building up Dottie obviously as kind of like the reluctant hero, because she was the best player in the team and probably the best player in the league overall. And for her to be the one to lose the final in such a way, you kind of get that kind of like, no kind of moment. And talking about sports formula, another film I absolutely love is Rocky. And that also kind of follows a trajectory of this kind of, but not, where you follow Rocky for the whole film. He's got his fight at the end, and you're like, is he going to? He's going to win, surely. You're not going to have the Rocky get to the match and lose, and he does. But the way it's done is done really well. Like this, like the Peaches lose the game, but it's not played out like it's the biggest drama in the world. It now becomes secondary to the human drama that's actually going on, and that's done really well. And also, you can't forget Hans Zimmer scores this bloody thing, and it's a really good score.
Yes, so that's also obviously something I wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
Mention Hans Zimmer. If you guys have listened to our episode on composers and music, I talk a lot about Hans Zimmer and how much I admire him and what he does. And this is one of his I don't even know if it's one of his earlier movies, but Penny Marshall said something like, Hans doesn't know anything about baseball. So what I love about him is that like it doesn't matter what like the movie was about baseball. It was about relationships and family, and he was able to hit the score off of that, but also create something that was in tune with what was going on, which was baseball too. And it's a really fun score. again, what Hans does so well is he adds, it's like another it's like another whole thing to the movie without such a fun and kind of a nail-biting score at some points. You wouldn't feel the same watching the movie. So he just does a spectacular job as usual. I feel really good. The music was just great.
Yeah, and it works so well in that final match. Again, especially in the kind of like the final battle between Dottie and Kit. Yeah, he really ramps that music up, and it's really, really good. This is actually one of his first like major soundtracks. I mean, no, it's not his first because he did Rain Man and that in like the late 1989. He's nominated for Academy Award there, but I think that was his first like major score, and I know he worked on films before that, like smaller films
for a while, but
yeah,
I was
late 80s. Yeah, he got into it as a actual like composer, scoring films on his own, basically.
Yeah. So another cool thing about this movie is that it's scored by him.
Anything scored by Hans Zimmer is usually pretty damn good. So I think that's pretty much my positives. But did you have any other positive things that you wanted to say about the film before we move on?
No, I think I'm good. Yeah.
No. Is there anything then? We always ask this on these shows, but and if the answer is no, then that's just fine. But is there anything in the film which didn't stand up for you, or you kind of thought, well, I didn't enjoy that as much as other parts?
No, nothing that really stands out. I think it's important to note how much that they made a point that these men were trying to objectify these women for financial gain.
Yeah.
Like they were allowing them to play baseball. And if they didn't follow their rules and if they weren't, keeping up with their looks and their behavior wasn't like perfect, they were out. So, it's good that times have changed, but, it's just something to keep in mind. Like, there is a standard for any athlete, I think, that's in a professional league, obviously. Like, in all the men's leagues, they have to wear suits when they go when they're on the plane to the bus to the stadium, derogatory terms and language is not acceptable. But I don't think that. I read a little trivia piece that one of the real players in the league cut her hair short, and they fired her because they cut her hair.
Wow.
So imagine that, and then like men's sports, you've got these like beasts of men who like have like long hair and it's like all over the place, and they look like Vikings and cavemen. And, like it's completely acceptable, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yep.
Back then, like you couldn't even cut your hair short. So, it's just something to keep in mind. It's not a negative of the movie. I think it's actually really good that they made that kind of put it out there as like this is kind of how it was. Mm-hmm. It wasn't. It's to signify that it probably wasn't easy for a lot of these women. Some are perfectly lovely ladies, I'm sure, but some of them probably just didn't grow up like that or whatever, and so they had to try really hard to keep their jobs.
Yeah,
they were paid $75 a week.
Which, calm down, guys. I mean, you can live like a queen on that.
Yeah, back then that was a lot of money. I can't remember where I read it. I had pulled it up somewhere where it showed like how much it would be now.
I'm actually going to find that out right now. So I'm going to find out the inflation rate of the US dollar from, was it 1943? Was it?
Yeah. So in Wikipedia, it says salaries were above average for women and ranged from $45 to $85, or $665 to $1,256 in 2019 inflation. A week in the first years of play to about $125 or $1,231 in 2019 amount per week in later years. The women's league generally went along with the men's late spring to early autumn season.
Looking at the inflation calculator, usinflationcalculator.com, shout out to my boys over there for helping me out here. If in 1943 it's purchased, if I purchased an item for $75, in 2020, it's 2021 now, but so for $75, then is now $1,128
a week, y'all.
A week.
Yeah. So
I'm in the wrong profession. I need to get into female baseball.
Yeah. And we hear at the beginning when he tells them how much money they'd make, and then Kit says, well, we only make 30 at the dairy.
Yeah.
So it's quite a substantial leap there.
Yeah, that's 30 at the dairy, $451 a week.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So it's pretty much double 150% rise or whatever that is. My maths on the spot there. It's a microcosm of time. It's a snapshot of a different era, which is captured really quite well. In that, to me, it never felt domineering. It never felt manipulative. It never felt overly sexualized or anything like that. I think they got the tones and the balance in my eyes. I think they got it quite right. And any time that they tried to, it was to suit the story. Like with the outfits when they bought the outfits out and the model was wearing them, she's kind of leaning over, sort of bending over, and the guys in the crowd are like, "Wow, look at that!" Yeah. It's all to push the story forward, because then the peaches are all of the players are just like, "I'm not wearing that." Do you know what I mean? So it's not like they're like, "Yeah, I'd love to wear this. This is the kind of thing I want to wear, and the guys will like this." It was nothing like that, and I appreciated that. It's just, again, it's just the power of decent storytelling. I don't really have any negatives of this film, really. I mean, they tied it up at the end, thankfully. If they hadn't shown old Stillwell, the little boy growing up, then I would have put him down, because I'd be like, I could have probably done without him running up and down the sides. But that little shit running up and down. But because at the end they get the payoff with him, and he's come there to represent his mum. And he said, this is probably the most fun she ever, the best period of her life, and you're like, oh, the little lad grew up, and look what he's doing. I was like, okay, he got the payoff, he got the arc, so it then makes me look back on the other things he did fondly. So I don't really have any negatives about this film, but I can't let you go without asking. I mean, have you ever known of anyone going for a 52-second wee?
Not women, no. But sometimes, like if I've been in the presence of a man,
in the presence of a man,
it's like forever.
Yeah. Well, Tom Hanks in The Green Mile had trouble pissing as well, so it's like there's obviously something wrong with Tom Hanks and weeing in films.
Yeah, that's actually true. I don't know. I can't say I've ever timed anyone peeing. Matt, sorry.
Maybe need to get on that train. Neither have I, to be fair. So again, there's a little moment I forgot, and it was a bit like, it just reminded me of obviously Austin Powers when they did it. But no, Tom Hanks had a lot of fun in that. Tom Hanks was having a lot of fun in this film, I think, as well. And this is, we look back at Tom Hanks now as everything he's done in his career, but obviously this is Tom Hanks in 92, and he's still got so much more to come, and he's still so good in this film. And I think the year, I think it's 93, he's winning the Oscar for Philadelphia, which is an absolute completely different role, and it's something that he's always been able to do, is just change like a chameleon into his roles. He can do comedy, he can do drama, he can do heightened pieces, he can do space films as well, as we know, and he can do animation. He can do quite a lot of things, that old Hanks. I hear he's quite a nice guy. But and there was like a short-lived TV series of A League of Their Own. But if I remember rightly, I believe they are rebooting a TV series of this.
I just read that last night. I didn't know. Yeah. So in August of last year, they announced that they were going to reboot A League of Their Own show, which is cool.
On Amazon.
Yeah, so that's cool. There was like a very short-lived show that starred like Marla, and who else was?
Nice.
Hmm?
It's a nice. I remember a couple of them were in, but I don't know. I know Marla was. I can't remember who the other one was.
And it didn't last, but that's okay. So yeah, I will have to look out for the new one.
No,
Exciting.
it's who says we know who's going to star it? No, co-creator. So Amazon Studios has picked up A League of Their Own, a reimagining of Penny Marshall's '92 film from co-creators Abby Jacobson from Broad City, who also stars, and Will Graham is going to be in it as well. The hour-long series, described as a fresh approach to Marshall's classic, will follow new characters who embody the spirit of a generation of women who dreamed to play pro baseball. So it's going to be a new look, and it's got good looking cast. Well, that's probably the wrong thing to say, but a good cast of stars in looking at the names here. But as the guy at Amazon said, there's no crying in baseball or at Prime Video, so they're bringing it back. So I'm interested in that to see what it's like, how they take it, whether it can hold a candle to this film or not. It would be interesting to see, but I don't know. I'm excited to see what they do with it, and I'm interested to see how people take to it, because this film is obviously nearly 30 years old now. Talking about a story which is now 80 years old.
Yeah.
So, how are people going to react to it in modern times? I'm quite interested for that.
It'll be interesting to see how a lot of shows are made these days. I'm just going to kind of stick to that feeling, the aesthetic that the movie gives, and that they don't add too much drama into it. Like, obviously, it's going to be a drama, you know. So, and drama is great. I watch drama shows, but some of the stuff is just like OTT, you know. And I would hate to see a show like that kind of go there when they have this chance to really create some really nice stories, I think, and highlight how special the league was at the time. So hopefully we get something like that. If we're going off Penny's vision, which I think is what I just said, is I think what she did. I was just thinking about the new show Selena, based off Stephen Quintia, the singer.
Yeah.
And how like this show is based off like her early life and how she kind of became famous versus like starting in the middle, starting kind of like where the movie started with her. It shows like the end of where it's eventually going to get there, but I think this is like with the approval of the family, where they wanted people to see like the person that she was and like how she got to where she was and the significance of that, and you know, highlighting people. Like if you're doing stories based off of real events and stuff, like this new show, this new League of Their Own, so it may not be the real people, but it is off a real thing that happened with real people. And so I think you have to be really delicate with that kind of thing. I just think it's important to really kind of focus on relationships, whether it be like friendships, romantic, whatever, family. So I kind of hope that that's the direction that they will go in for this.
Yeah, because like you said, that was Penny's vision, and everybody on board. That was how they ran with it for the film. And it's interesting that they're not kind of picking up and saying, well, the events of the series are set 8 years after the film, so they're not going to be potential. I assume they're not going to be name checking anyone from the film, or they might do like kind of like for a cheeky Easter egg, a little wink. But it looks like it's going to be its own thing. But no, I'll check it out. Amazon, they like to throw money at projects which they think are going to work. They're not quite as gung ho as some other studios are. So interested to see that. But I think that kind of I think that wraps up our chat about old baseball. Unless there's anything else you wanted to chuck in about A League of Their Own, Queen.
No, that is all. That was fun. It's such a good movie, you guys. Watch it if you haven't seen it. Watch it again if you have. It's a good one.
And if you haven't seen it, Racine win, as we've just said. So, yeah. enjoy that. But yes, so that was our League of Their Own retrospectives. I want to thank Laura for coming on again, giving her transatlantic time on a Friday to come and chat some film. And let's not wait a year till the next one, huh?
Yeah, let's not, please.
So Laura can regale me about cupcakes off air, but for those who may want to ask her about the Rise of Skywalker, where can the world find you online?
Oh, my lowly old Twitter account at Born in the Dawn 11. And that's the only place. Feel free to message me. Only if you have questions about movies, please.
Yeah, if you want to, Adam Driver, Ray Skywalker, Palpatine, Smith, go and ask questions about that. And you just make sure, just clear your diaries because you'll be in for a good time. But yes, so thank you for coming on. If you want to find me or follow or find more information about what we're doing, it's whatIwatchdtonight.co.uk. Search What I Watched Tonight, Facebook. We're on there, but don't use it often. Instagram, Twitter, Letterboxd, trying to think of all those buzzwords and social media accounts. We're all over that. If you like what you've just heard, please do share it with your friends. If you know there's a couple of people you know that like a League of Their Own, tell them there's an hour and a half discussion about the film from a couple of legends. And if you do have a spare 30 seconds, please do consider leaving a good review for the show because it helps get more listeners in. It helps the series expand and also means we get to chat film with a lot more of you guys, which, to be fair, are all film fans. As long as we can get on, we'll talk film together. But that was a League of Our Own. That was this episode of Retrospectives. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Laura, thank you once again for coming on and blessing us with your presence.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
The next time we're on, we'll see if Laura's managed to hear anyone do a 53-second wee. But until next time, from me, see ya.